She grew up on a dusty mining colony where the horizons stretched endlessly into a grayish-orange sky, and the winds carried the scent of metal and stone from the mines her family worked in, from sunrise to sunset. She was small for her age, but her movements were swift and precise, and she learned to climb rocky cliffs and maneuver through the twisting corridors of abandoned mining shafts, her imagination turning them into battlegrounds where she was always the victor. She watched the stars pass overhead, dreaming of adventures beyond the colony, dreaming of skies filled with planets and battles and victories that would be sung in stories for generations to come. Her father taught her how to handle tools and machinery, and she transformed those skills into makeshift weapons, practicing with rocks and sticks, imagining herself as a general leading armies with strategy and courage. Her mother told her stories of past heroes, human and alien alike, who had defied impossible odds, and she held those stories close in the quiet nights when the stars shone bright above the barren landscape. She trained relentlessly every morning, climbing cliffs, running through the barren fields, carrying imaginary soldiers on her back and barking orders to the shadows that followed her faithfully like soldiers ready for war. Her dog came into her life when she was only 10, a small, scrappy pup with fur the color of midnight and eyes that glowed with curiosity and intelligence, immediately forming a bond that would never be broken. They ran together every morning through the canyon paths, racing each other over rocks and through streams. And the dog learned to respond to her commands almost instantly, following her lead in everything. She became known in the colony as the girl who would never back down, challenging older boys to races and fights, and always emerging victorious because of her cleverness and fearlessness. She studied maps of the galaxy scavenged from old wrecks, and listened to tales of the Galactic Empire from traveling merchants, imagining herself commanding starships and leading legions in battles across countless worlds. She spent nights crafting miniature ships and armies from scrap metal and stone, plotting strategies that were far beyond her years, and her imagination ran wild with the possibilities of what she could achieve if she ever left the mining colony. Her skills did not go unnoticed, and whispers of her talent reached the ears of an imperial recruiter who arrived in a silver starship gleaming under the harsh sun and offered her a chance to train among the finest minds and soldiers in the galaxy. She hesitated, only briefly thinking of her home and the dog that had become her shadow, but her heart burned with the desire for adventure and proving herself. She said goodbye to her family and climbed aboard the ship with her dog tucked in a small carrier at her side, feeling the engines roar beneath her feet and the stars finally close enough to touch. She trained harder than anyone else, learning tactics, weaponry, and leadership, her mind absorbing knowledge and her body pushing past every limit she had known in the mines. Her dog adapted quickly to the ship and the routines of life among soldiers, becoming both companion and confidant as she rose quickly through the ranks, outshining older cadets and earning the respect of instructors who recognized a brilliance and determination that could not be taught. Her first mission came sooner than anyone expected, and the weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders like a living thing. She was sent to the outer colonies where rebels had begun to disrupt supply lines and attack small settlements, and the Galactic Empire demanded swift action. She studied the maps of the region, memorizing every asteroid belt, every abandoned outpost, and every hidden canyon where ambushes could be laid. She walked through the corridors of the starship, her dog trotting beside her as if sensing the magnitude of what was about to unfold. Her team of soldiers was larger and older and more experienced, and many doubted her leadership until she spoke, and her voice carried authority, calm and unwavering, and they listened. Her first orders were precise and clever, sending smaller squads to create diversions while she led the main strike against the rebel command post. They flew in the early hours when the twin suns barely kissed the horizon, cloaking their approach in shadows, and the rebels were caught completely off guard. She moved with the grace of someone who had fought 100 battles already, her dog leaping and dodging beside her, her senses sharp and alert as lasers whistled past them and debris fell from damaged walls. She coordinated attacks from multiple angles, catching the rebels in traps they did not know existed, and every move she made was calculated to minimize casualties while ensuring victory. The people in the colonies watched in awe from hiding places as a young human general led the imperial forces with unmatched skill and bravery, and even those who feared the empire could not help but admire her courage. The battle lasted hours, and every second was a test Of endurance, strategy, and nerve, her dog became a hero alongside her, carrying supplies, alerting her to hidden enemies, and attacking when necessary with precision and loyalty. Her soldiers grew to trust her instincts, following her into the most dangerous areas without hesitation, and her reputation began to spread like wildfire across the sector and beyond. By the time the battle ended, the rebels were defeated, scattered and humiliated, and the supply lines were secured. She moved through the aftermath, helping the injured and coordinating relief for the settlements, ensuring that no one suffered unnecessarily, and earning gratitude and respect from those she had protected. The Empire could not ignore her achievement, and she was commended publicly, her name being spoken with pride and sometimes envy by other generals and leaders, and her story began to reach every corner of the galaxy as the human general who had won against impossible odds. At night, she would sit quietly with her dog, watching the stars and planning the next moves, always thinking of ways to be faster, smarter, stronger, never satisfied with her victories, always seeking to improve to ensure that the next challenge could be met and conquered. Her mind raced with possibilities, imagining greater missions and larger battles, envisioning herself commanding fleets of starships and armies of soldiers across entire systems, while her dog rested faithfully by her side, keeping watch and providing comfort in the quiet moments that came between chaos and strategy. The taste of victory was sweet and addictive, and she knew this was only the beginning, that the galaxy had seen only a glimpse of what she could achieve, and the bond with her dog grew stronger, every day solidifying a partnership that would survive the fiercest wars and the deadliest betrayals that were yet to come. The Empire grew wary of her rising fame, and whispered doubts spread through the halls of command. Those who envied her skill began to plot, and her own allies became instruments of deception. They invited her to lead a critical mission deep within enemy territory, promising unprecedented rewards and recognition. She accepted, trusting in her instincts and her training, believing she could outmaneuver any danger. Her dog sensed unease in the air and stayed close, but she brushed aside the feelings. Focusing on strategy and the task at hand, the mission began flawlessly, with squads moving like shadows under her precise direction, her dog scouting ahead, signaling hidden threats, and her soldiers following every command without hesitation. But beneath the surface, betrayal was unfolding in secret messages passed behind closed doors, promises made to rivals, alliances forged in darkness. And as the battle drew near, the enemy seemed unnaturally prepared for every move, as if they knew exactly what she would do. Her plans were anticipated, her flanks ambushed, and her reinforcements mysteriously delayed. She moved with urgency, trying to adapt her strategies using every ounce of experience she had gained, yet every step forward seemed to be met with unseen obstacles and sudden traps. She watched in disbelief as trusted lieutenants hesitated when called for support. Soldiers she had trained and guided faltered or turned away, and her confidence wavered for the first time since she had risen to command. The confrontation escalated into chaos, fire and explosions consuming the landscape around her, laser beams tearing through walls and the air filled with smoke and the screams of both allies and enemies. Her dog leaped at dangers with fearless devotion, biting and distracting when necessary, but even the loyal companion could not alter the overwhelming tide of betrayal. She realized with a sinking heart that she had been set up, that the Empire itself had orchestrated this trap, and the faces of those who had sworn loyalty now glared at her with concealed satisfaction and hidden motives. She fought with everything in her power, dodging attacks, countering with precision, striking where possible, but every effort seemed futile as more forces surrounded her and the ground shook with relentless bombardment. Eventually, the enemy overwhelmed her position. A sudden explosion threw her off balance, and she was struck down, falling into darkness with the last sight of her dog barking desperately beside her. She awoke hours later in rubble and smoke, pain coursing through her body and memories of betrayal burning her mind. She realized the full magnitude of what had happened. The Empire had attempted to erase her from history and silence her forever, yet the dog remained alive, weak and injured, but alive, nudging her gently, urging her to move. She struggled to stand, every muscle screaming in protest, but determination surged through her veins, the betrayal fueling a fire she had never known before. She scavenged what she could from the wreckage, salvaging supplies, weapons, and medical materials, using her wits to stabilize her injuries and care for her dog. She knew the Empire would assume she was dead, and that no one would expect her to survive, and that knowledge became her weapon, a hidden advantage in the darkness. As she plotted her path forward, silently vowing that every traitor, every conspirator, every hand that had struck against her would one day face justice, and that she and her loyal companion would rise stronger and more cunning than ever before. She crawled through the smoking ruins of the battlefield, her body battered and aching, every movement a test of endurance, her dog limping beside her, refusing to leave her side with eyes full of unwavering loyalty. The stench of burnt metal and scorched flesh hung heavy in the air, and the silence after the chaos was almost deafening, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She scavenged for supplies, anything that could sustain her, and her dog pulling shards of metal from wreckage, stripping broken crates of rations and water, hiding in shadows whenever distant patrols of the Empire passed by. Her mind raced constantly, analyzing escape routes, memorizing terrain, and planning how to move without being seen. Her dog scouted ahead, sniffing and listening, its senses sharper than any human, and every alert it gave saved her from traps or wandering patrols. Hunger and exhaustion gnawed at her body, but she pushed forward, relying on sheer determination and training she had acquired. Over years of preparation and battles, she slept little, resting only when the dog curled beside her for warmth and comfort, and even then one eye remained open, scanning for danger. She stumbled upon abandoned tunnels beneath the ruins, perfect for shelter and concealment, and there she tended to injuries, wrapping wounds with scavenged cloth and fashioning splints from broken beams. Her dog licked her face and pawed gently, as if reminding her that she was not alone, and the bond between them deepened into something unbreakable. She hunted small creatures, scavenged edible plants, and drank from hidden streams, surviving on what little the desolate landscape provided. Every meal a small victory, and every night alive a testament to her willpower. She remembered every betrayal, every face that had turned against her, and stored that memory like fuel for the fire burning within her, plotting silently the ways she would repay the debt owed to those who had tried to destroy her. Meanwhile, she mapped the surrounding areas, noting patrol patterns, ship routes, and weak points in the Empire forces, preparing for a return that would be swift, precise, and unstoppable. She practiced fighting in the shadows, running drills with her dog, using improvised weapons, and even when she stumbled or faltered, she rose again, each day stronger, more agile, and more cunning. The nights were the hardest, dark and cold, filled with echoes of distant explosions and screams that haunted her dreams, yet her dog never left her side, comforting her, reminding her of hope and companionship in a world that had shown only treachery. Her determination grew from mere survival to a fierce desire to reclaim what had been stolen from her honor and name, and the idea of returning to face the Empire and the traitors no longer seemed impossible but inevitable. She imagined herself striking from the shadows, dismantling enemies one by one, her dog leading the way, sniffing out danger, and assisting in every maneuver. She whispered plans to the dog as if it could understand every word, and in the quiet moments when the wind blew through the tunnels and the stars peeked through cracks above, she felt a small flicker of peace, knowing that they had survived together, and that their story was only beginning, and that the galaxy would soon remember the human general who had been killed and the loyal dog who refused to abandon her, and together they would rise. Months passed in the hidden tunnels and abandoned outposts, far from prying eyes, and the human general transformed every day, her body becoming stronger, faster, and more resilient, her mind sharper and more calculating as she honed every skill she had learned and discovered new ones. Her dog adapted alongside her, learning advanced tracking, scouting, and even combat techniques that made it an indispensable partner in every maneuver they ran. Obstacle courses through collapsed tunnels, leapt over crumbling walls, and practiced silent takedowns, using shadows and misdirection. She studied enemy manuals, scavenged from wreckage, memorizing their strategies, formations, and weaknesses, and she crafted intricate plans to exploit them. Her makeshift training grounds were filled with improvised weapons and mechanical devices that tested her reflexes, endurance, and precision. From throwing knives to energy pistols and even rudimentary explosives, she pushed herself beyond pain, ignoring injuries and fatigue, teaching her dog to respond instantly to commands, moving in perfect synchronization with each attack and counterattack. Her mind was a constant storm of calculations and scenarios, predicting outcomes and planning contingencies for every possible threat. Every night she reviewed maps of Imperial strongholds, memorizing patrols, ship movements, and escape routes, while her dog curled beside her, alert to the slightest sound or movement. She experimented with stealth tactics, practicing infiltration and reconnaissance, using darkness and terrain to her advantage. and she trained her dog to detect threats before they became dangers. She created signals and codes only they understood, enabling communication in silence and preparing for situations where speaking could mean death. She practiced ambushes over and over, setting traps using the environment to multiply their effectiveness and imagining the faces of traitors and commanders who had betrayed her as targets to sharpen her focus. The bond between her and her dog grew beyond companionship into an intuitive connection where a glance or a gesture conveyed entire plans and intentions. Her instincts became honed to near supernatural levels, perceiving danger before it arrived, reacting faster than anyone could anticipate, and combining strategy and ferocity in ways that were almost impossible to counter. She maintained herself on minimal rations, pushing hunger and thirst into tools for discipline and endurance. Testing the limits of her body and mind, she recorded observations about her enemies' habits, tactics, and patterns in crude journals, and used them to develop strategies that could topple imperial forces with precision and efficiency. Her dog became her shadow, her scout, and her weapon, moving silently and striking decisively, and together they were a team unmatched by any force. They imagined every scenario, planned every contingency, and rehearsed every move until instinct and training were when she began to see herself not just as a survivor, but as a force of reckoning, a phantom in the shadows preparing to return to the world that had tried to destroy her. And the thought of facing the Empire with her loyal companion filled her with a mixture of anticipation and controlled rage. She knew that every challenge ahead would test them to the limits, but she welcomed it, relishing the idea that her transformation was not complete yet, and that the universe had no idea of the storm that was gathering in the shadows, and that soon the human general and her dog would rise like legends, unstoppable, precise, and utterly relentless. She moved through the galaxy like a shadow, slipping past patrols and scanning stations, avoiding sensors and detection, her every movement deliberate and calculated. As she returned to the territories controlled by the Empire, her dog ran silently at her side, alert to every danger and anticipating threats she could not see. Together, they were a single unit, their instincts intertwined and their purpose clear. She observed the Empire from hidden vantage points, studying routines, ship schedules, and the movements of officers, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Small acts of sabotage began, first disabling supply lines quietly, setting off explosions in depots, cutting communications, and spreading chaos without leaving a trace, leaving commanders bewildered and afraid. Rumors of the human general who had survived death began to spread, whispers in the corridors of imperial stations. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones of a figure who moved unseen, striking with precision and vanishing like smoke. Every mission she undertook was planned meticulously, using knowledge she had gathered during months in hiding, calculating the exact time and place to cause maximum effect with minimal risk. Her dog scouted ahead, infiltrated spaces, and even carried messages or tools she needed, executing commands flawlessly. Her presence became a phantom, haunting Imperial officers, destabilizing their confidence and forcing them to question every action she had made. She studied the terrain before each strike, learning escape routes and fallback points, memorizing every shadow alley and ventilation shaft. Her strategies were unpredictable, complex, and lethal, combining stealth tactics, misdirection, and psychological warfare to terrorize the Empire without ever exposing herself. She used disguises for rare interactions, blending into crowds and stations, studying people, gathering intelligence, and planting seeds of doubt and fear. The Empire began to tighten security, trying to anticipate her next move, but she had already planned 3 steps ahead, using the very system meant to trap her as a shield and weapon. Every patrol rerouted into traps. Every communication channel manipulated. Her dog became more than a companion. It was a scout, a guard, and an enforcer, signaling danger or opportunity with silent gestures and perfectly timed actions. She struck key supply convoys with precision, leaving behind only evidence of a careful and intelligent adversary. Her return was not loud or reckless. It was measured, patient, and terrifying in its inevitability. She began to recruit allies from those who had suffered under the Empire, using her reputation and subtle influence to build a small but loyal force ready to act at her signal. Every move she made spread fear, uncertainty, and admiration, simultaneously destabilizing the Empire while strengthening her own resolve. She walked among shadows, gathering intelligence, manipulating events, and observing the flaws in the Empire's operations. Her mind was a battlefield, constantly planning contingencies and predicting outcomes, and her dog mirrored her alertness and cunning, ready to respond instantly. She could feel the weight of vengeance building within her, a controlled fury that would not be unleashed until the perfect moment. Yet even in the quiet preparation she felt exhilaration, anticipation, and satisfaction, knowing that the Empire thought her dead and that every step she took brought her closer to reclaiming what had been stolen: her name, her honor, and the justice owed to her and her loyal companion in the darkness. The human general and her dog moved like ghosts, preparing to return, not as survivors but as an unstoppable force that the galaxy would never forget. She moved through the corridors of the Imperial stronghold like a whisper, her dog at her side, ears perked and muscles tense, every sense attuned to danger and opportunity. The traitors who had betrayed her thought they were safe, cocooned in the comfort of power, unaware that the human general who had been declared dead was watching, planning, and waiting for the precise moment to strike. She observed them from hidden vantage points, memorizing habits, schedules, and weaknesses, noting the exact time each commander left their office, the routes they took, and the guards assigned to them, every detail catalogued for use in the inevitable reckoning. Her dog scouted ahead, slipping silently past sentries, detecting threats and alerting her with subtle gestures, and her mind raced with possibilities, plotting each confrontation carefully, with precision and patience. She did not rush. Instead, she let fear and anticipation build in her enemies, while she positioned herself to strike where it would hurt most, psychologically and strategically. First, she targeted the minor betrayers, sending messages of warning and small sabotage that undermined their confidence, leaving them fearful and unsure of whom to trust. Rumors of a vengeful general spread through the ranks, creating paranoia and suspicion that weakened alliances and caused mistrust among the highest officers. Each act was carefully calculated, designed to destabilize and isolate her enemies. While maintaining her secrecy, she watched as their plans faltered, their communications disrupted, and their patrols confused, and she smiled quietly, knowing that each step brought her closer to confronting those who had struck her down. Her dog became an extension of her will, moving silently in shadows, intercepting guards and delivering small but precise attacks when needed. Her bond with the dog was perfect. Synchronization, anticipating each other's moves and reacting with instinctive precision. She studied the main traitors, observing their mannerisms, noting the subtle signs of fear, guilt, and arrogance, planning the moment when she would confront them directly. Each encounter was a test of intellect, patience, and strategy, as she manipulated situations, forcing them into vulnerable positions, isolating them from allies, and exposing secrets that would have remained hidden had she not intervened. One by one, she confronted the commanders who had betrayed her, moving with stealth and speed, eliminating threats silently and efficiently, leaving chaos in her wake. Their disbelief and panic only fueled her resolve as they realized the figure they thought dead was alive, more powerful, cunning, and relentless than they could have imagined. Every strike was precise, every action calculated, and her dog executed its part, flawlessly, attacking and defending with loyalty and intelligence. Her enemies were caught in a web of fear and confusion as she systematically dismantled their networks and exposed their treachery to the Empire, sowing discord and mistrust at the highest levels. The satisfaction of confronting those who had wronged her was tempered by the knowledge that the ultimate challenge lay ahead, the leaders of the Empire themselves, and she prepared for the final confrontation, studying weaknesses, gathering intelligence, and rehearsing strategies, with her dog ready to strike when the time was perfect. And with every passing day she moved closer to reclaiming not only her honor, but the justice and vengeance she had patiently built in the shadows. As a phantom, unstoppable, precise, and terrifying, the time had come, and the human general moved toward the heart of the Empire, her dog at her side, every sense alert and every muscle coiled for action. The sky above the capital was a battlefield of blazing starships and smoke curling from explosions. As the chaos she had sown spread through the city, her forces, though small, were precise, striking at weak points, sabotaging defenses, and creating diversions that pulled Imperial troops away from key targets. Her dog darted between shadows, scouting rooftops and corridors, warning of patrols and attacking where necessary to clear paths. She navigated the streets and tunnels with uncanny knowledge, every alley, every hidden passage memorized, from careful reconnaissance, and every move calculated to avoid detection while maximizing impact. The first confrontation came with the commanders who had orchestrated her betrayal. They had fortified themselves in a towering citadel, confident that no one could reach them. She approached silently, slipping past past guards using misdirection and traps, leaving them isolated and vulnerable. One by one, they fell to her strategy, each strike precise, calculated and executed with unrelenting force, her dog assisting without hesitation, biting, clawing, and signaling dangers with perfect timing. The city itself became a maze of chaos, explosions shaking buildings and starships colliding above as her small team moved like ghosts through the streets, disabling weapons, supply depots, and communication arrays, creating panic and confusion throughout the Empire forces. Every encounter tested her skill and endurance. Her dog, always alert and by her side reinforcing her moves, her strategy was a symphony of chaos and precision, psychological warfare and brute force, destabilizing the Empire from within while maintaining her own stealth and safety. She faced elite Imperial soldiers trained to kill and commanded by officers who had once sneered at her, and each battle was a test of intellect and strength. Her dog helped detect traps and ambushes, intercepting threats and saving her life more than once. The final showdown erupted in the central command tower, where the leaders of the Empire awaited, confident in their control and their perceived victory. She entered the chamber, moving through shadows, striking with precision, catching them off guard, exploiting weaknesses, and turning their own defenses against them. Lasers and energy weapons blazed around her. Explosions shook the room, and her dog leaped into action, knocking aside guards and biting with calculated force. Her mind remained focused, calm, and ruthless. Every move predicted, every outcome planned meticulously, and as the dust settled and the last enemy fell, she stood victorious, surrounded by the remnants of those who had tried to destroy her. Her dog barked once, then settled at her feet, signaling that the battle was over for now. Yet the victory was complete, her honor reclaimed, her vengeance delivered, and the Empire left in shock and fear at the human general who had returned from the dead and led a rebellion from shadows to dismantle their control. She looked across the battlefield, seeing the cost, yet feeling the power of survival, cunning and loyalty combined, and knew that this moment would be remembered throughout the galaxy as a turning point, that her story and her dog's loyalty had forged a legend of fear, respect, and inspiration that would echo for generations, and that the human general was no longer a soldier following orders, but a force of reckoning, unstoppable, precise, and eternal. The battles were over, and the smoke had cleared, yet the human general did not pause. Instead, she walked through the aftermath, surveying the devastation and the cost of victory, her dog trotting faithfully beside her, alert to every movement and sound. Her eyes swept over the city once ruled by the Empire, now trembling in the wake of her calculated strikes. She could see fear, awe, and uncertainty in the faces of those who had survived, and her heart swelled with a mixture of satisfaction and solemn responsibility. She did not seek power for herself. Instead, she focused on justice, rebuilding order, and ensuring that the oppressed could live without fear. Her dog remained ever vigilant, guarding her side, warning of danger, and offering comfort in the quiet moments that followed the chaos. Together, they moved through the galaxy, visiting colonies and planets that had suffered under Imperial rule, administering aid, guiding local leaders, and inspiring hope with stories of courage, strategy, and survival. They were symbols of resilience, a legend of one human and one loyal companion who had survived death, betrayal, and impossible odds, and who now stood as a beacon of what could be accomplished with determination, intelligence, and unwavering loyalty. Everywhere they went, people spoke of the human general who had returned from death and the dog that had never left her. Side tales passed from mouth to mouth, children mimicking their bravery, and soldiers studying their tactics. Her journals of strategy and observations were studied by leaders seeking to protect their people, and by commanders learning the lessons of patience, stealth, and foresight. She trained new generations, sharing knowledge without revealing every secret, preserving the mystique of her survival and ensuring that the skills she had mastered could endure beyond her lifetime. Her dog aged beside her, still alert, courageous, and loyal, a constant reminder of the bond that had made every triumph possible and every challenge surmountable. They walked together under alien suns, across barren deserts, lush forests, and frozen wastelands, bringing guidance and hope, leaving behind stories of a survivor who refused to die and a companion who refused to abandon. Her name became legend, her deeds recorded in chronicles, and her presence respected and feared by those who sought tyranny. She reflected on the journey from a small mining colony to the edge of the galaxy and realized that every betrayal, every hardship, and every battle had forged not only her skills but her understanding of loyalty, courage, and the responsibility that came with power. She understood that survival alone was not enough, that true Legacy came from the lives she touched, the systems she protected, and the hope she inspired. Her dog curled at her feet on quiet nights, reminding her that even in victory, companionship and love were vital, and that every triumph was sweeter when shared. Her final act was not conquest, but teaching, guiding, empowering, ensuring that those who followed would learn that intelligence, courage, and loyalty could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. And as she gazed at the stars with her dog resting beside her, she knew that the galaxy would remember not only the general who had been killed and returned, but the bond that had carried her through death, betrayal, and war, and that their story would endure as a legend of resilience, cunning, and the unbreakable connection between a human and the companion who never left her side. And together they continued their journey, a force of inspiration, a reminder that survival was only the beginning, and that loyalty, courage, and determination could reshape the universe.